All right, well, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's time management workshop. My name is Michael Migliaro. I am a Practicum student here with Academic Support Programs. Very excited to be with you all today. I'm going to throw a quick link in the chat. If you haven't noticed, the live transcript is available for today's session for individuals who may need that. There's some information there about controlling the size of said transcript on the Zoom call if that is an accommodation that you need. But with that, we'll get started. I'm going to share my screen and go through our presentation. So today's workshop is all about time management. So first, just starting with a basic definition. So time management is defined by Oxford Language as the ability to use one's time effectively or productively, especially at work. So a common misconception that we see with time is time equals money. It's a big phrase that is really thrown out there that many people like to use. It's kind of their motto, but I want to challenge that idea and kind of refute that and say time really is not money. Seneca, a Roman philosopher, said, if we think of time as money, we're actually valuing our time very cheaply. Time is flexible in a way that money is not. You know, if I go spend $100 at Amazon, that $100 is spent. Whereas my time, I could sit down and say I'm gonna spend 100 minutes on my math homework, but then I can, get 15 minutes into that and decide to spend my other 85 minutes differently if I need to. So I want to challenge you all to kind of shift your mindset around time management. So a lot of times we'll say, I don't have time for something, whatever that may be, in a given day for you. So please think about the way in which we think about this. And instead of saying, I don't have time for, make that object the beginning of the sentence and say that that is not a priority for me. So when we think in this way, we can really hone in on our time management skills and truly see the logic behind what we're actually saying and what we're meaning. So if I said, I don't have time to sleep, I have to study for this big chemistry exam. Okay, maybe in that way you think you don't have time to sleep. But if instead I say sleep is not a priority for me, sleep is an essential function of our human body. So saying that sleep is not a priority for you can kind of change and see a new perspective and a new way of thinking about how we are choosing to spend our time and how we're managing that time. So here are some kind of tips for success. Having a planner, that can be a paper planner, it can be using your Google Calendar, it can be an online planner. There are tools even in Blackboard that you can use that have planners features. Just having somewhere where you have your dates down. I know I hate looking at my 10 different syllabi for my courses and looking at all those dates. So having them all in one place, being able to manage my time effectively in that way. Presetting our deadlines. So presetting deadlines means if my quiz in Biology 104 is due Friday at noon, I'm going to preset my deadline and say, hey, I want it to be done by Thursday night at 8 p.m. And that will kind of set you up for success in being early with those, and also giving you time if you do need to pivot some of your time to maybe some emergency situations and really giving yourself that extra flexibility. Utilizing SMART goals, we'll go into these a little more in depth in a little bit, but setting goals for your time, setting goals for your semester, minimizing distractions. So things like, putting your phone on a do not disturb setting, or making sure that you're in an environment that is free of distractions, finding maybe a more private space than sitting in a large lecture hall or a building on campus with a lot of noise around you. Or finding that maybe being alone is a distraction to you. Maybe you need an accountability buddy who's going to make sure that you stay off your phone. So finding a friend to study with or a small group where you kind of hold each other accountable to minimize those distractions. Another thing is don't wait until the last minute. As much as you can, you want to ensure that we're not waiting to the last minute for things, because you're going to potentially. There is an old saying or an old joke going around: if you wait until the last minute, it only takes a minute to do. That is false. That is not a true statement. I don't know of very, very many school projects that only take me a minute to get done. So one time management strategy I wanted to talk through with you all is Google Calendar. This is a free resource that you all have as students here at the University of Mississippi. And so I'm going to pull up a Google Calendar, an example, and kind of show you ways that we've seen people utilize it or that I utilize it myself. So if you go to your email, choose your email right here, calendar. So if I go to my Google Calendar, if I go back to last week. So here is an example of what your calendar might look like in a given week. So on my calendar, I have all of my courses. I wanted to go to the old women's basketball game that Sunday. Maybe you're in a Greek organization, you have chapter on Monday night. Maybe you have a job at Domino's, playing an intramural sport. Things of that nature. So start with your class schedule. Do things like I'm meeting with my advisor. Anything that I'm going to do in a given week. Up here, you got some exams, some Pearson homework. Also, it'll give you holidays, things like that. So Black History Month started in February. But just great resources for you all to kind of look at a given week and really plan it out. So as an activity, let's try and go in. I want you to go into your Google Calendar, calendar.google.com, and let's look at maybe putting in a day or so in our Google Calendar and seeing what that might look like. So obviously you'll add your own course schedule, but I'll kind of show you what it looks like to add some events in Google Calendar. So if go to next week. So on Monday, let's say you're taking Intro to Psychology from 10 to 11:15. You can put in 2:01. You can put where the class happens. So let's say I have class over in Weir Hall. And then you can set these events to repeat for a certain amount of time. So I would hit custom. I'm going to have this event end on the last day of classes, which is for a Monday course would be April 25th. I hit done. And then I would save. And so that class, if I go into next week, that class is there on every Monday going forward for the rest of the semester. Another thing that I find very helpful with my Google Calendar is scheduling out other commitments like intramural sports, student organizations. So next Thursday, a student organization I'm a part of, the Student Personnel Association, has a meeting from 5 to 6. So SPA meeting, it is in the Union. So if I add location, Ole Miss Student Union, this is a one-time event, so I'm not going to do any of the repeating. And then I just hit save. And so you kind of build out your calendar and continue to add your classes. If I have other classes, one-off events, you can also color code your calendar, which is the thing I'm big on. So for my meeting, maybe my student organizations are green instead of blue. So blue is for my class schedule, but student organization meetings maybe are green. Find a color coding system that works for you and kind of go forward there. Are there any questions about anything that Google Calendar can do, or anything we've talked about so far? Okay. So going back here. So SMART goals. So with SMART goals, SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timed. So what this means is that we want our goals to not just be, I want to do better in school, because that's really hard to measure, because doing better in school could be going from a D to a C, it could be going from a D to an A, it could be going from a B to an A. And so there's too much flexibility, or there's not a specific way to measure said goal. Measurable, once again, we want to measure it. So maybe instead of saying I want to do better in school, maybe I specifically want to get at least a 3.0 GPA this semester. Achievable, it needs to be something that is realistic. So I can't say I want to go, my overall GPA go from a 1.0 to a 3.8 in a given semester. That is just not a feasible goal for someone to achieve, because no matter how many credits you take in a given semester, that is just, even if you got straight A's, you would not be able to get to that number. Relevant, it means that the goal should have to do with the topic that you are assigning the goal to. So, I don't want to set a goal about scoring soccer goals when I'm talking about academics. Those are two unrelated topics. And then lastly, the timed aspect. So you want to set a time period in which you want this goal to be achieved. So at the end of the semester, at the end of the month, things like that. With SMART goals, they do not just have to be academic related. So they can be related to personal life. Maybe you have fitness goals or health and wellness goals. They could be for student organizations. Maybe you want to hold a leadership position in a Greek organization you're a part of. They don't just have to be academic goals. So, is anyone willing to share a goal they have for this semester?
I'm trying to make sure I stay on top of assignments and maintain at least a 3.0 for the GPA semester.
Okay. So how do you think that already is a SMART goal, or how can we maybe change that, tweak it to become a SMART goal?
So I'm scheduling like when I do my assignments and measuring out like what assignments I have each week and where the priority needs to be each day for each assignment, because I'm in like I think 6 classes. So I set aside each day for one specific class, and I maintain like a schedule because I also work. So I set up time slots where I'll go to the study room, so I won't be prone to do anything else within my room. So I'll go to a room that doesn't have distractions in it, and I normally take friends with me, so they make sure I'm not on my phone or I'm not doing anything else that's not school related.
Great. Yeah. But so I think that's a great goal to have. I think you talked about your GPA as well, setting that to be a semester goal. That is obviously, you have a specific number you're looking in mind, things like that. So I think that is great. So just a little, which of these of the 3 bullets on the bottom of the screen do we think is a SMART goal that is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timed? Is it, I want to do better in school? At the end of the spring semester, I'll improve my overall GPA from a 1.4 to a 3.5. Or at the end of the spring 2022 semester, I want to have at least a 3.0 semester GPA.
The last one.
Yes, so the last one. So our first one, I want to do better in school. It's a very vague example. There's nothing specific about it. Doing better in school is also a very relative term. And improvements could be small, or we could be looking for big improvements. Our middle improvement is what I hit on the last slide as well. Going from a 1.4 to a 3.5 is not possible. No matter, you get straight A's and up to 18 credit hours, and your GPA, I think at the highest would be a 2.8 or 3.0. So getting up to a 3.5 is not a realistic or achievable goal. At the end of the spring 21 semester, I want to have at least a 3.0 semester GPA. So looking at your semester GPA specifically, that's just the courses in a given semester. It's very feasible for someone to get a 3.0 semester GPA. So yes. Are there any questions about SMART goals? So minimizing distractions, this is another big aspect, hit on it a little bit before. Finding a good study space. So here on campus, we have the library is always a good resource, but some people maybe don't like the library, or it's just not a space for them. There are other buildings on campus. Here in Johnson Commons East, where Academic Support Programs is located, we have tables throughout the entire building here that are open for any students to come in and study. There are spaces in the Turner Center, in the South Campus Recreation Center, other academic buildings on campus, the student union that you can go to study, finding the space that works for you. Also, you don't have to stay on campus to study, you know, especially if you live off campus, go to a coffee shop. There are a lot of great coffee shops. I love High Point down Old Taylor Road. But those are another great place to study. It's where I did a lot of my studying in undergrad. It was at a coffee shop. One thing I will kind of caution you about is I personally do not study in my bedroom. It isn't for me. There's some studies that suggest that there's an association of your brain between what the activities you do in a given space. And so I found that when I was studying in my room in undergrad, I wasn't sleeping as well because my brain was still trying to go, because it was associating my room with a place where I was doing work. That may or may not be the case for you. So figure out whether that does or does not work for you. Silence your phone or utilize do not disturb, making sure that we are minimizing those distractions from our cell phone. Studying alone or with friends. Find out what works for you. I like to have the friends around as an accountability person, as someone I can ask questions with, because most of my friends are within my major. So, you know, we can ask each other questions about our homework in our classes, things like that. But some people, friends are a distraction. Some people, they're going to go off on a tangent and not stick to that studying or that activity that is planned for that group, or we're not going to just stay focused. Setting those boundaries. So when you're in groups, making sure that everyone is on task, that we're focused, that we are saying what is okay and what's not. Maybe you like to study with background music, but a friend, that's not a good environment for them. So if you agree to study together, have those conversations and make sure that we are not just going in blind, not having those conversations, because it can really make or break a study space. And lastly, keeping your space organized. So you are going to study better, be more focused when you can easily identify things that you may need within your study space. So don't have, 50 million handouts all scattered over with no order. Try and space things out of, here's my biology notes. Maybe you're also working towards a math test. Math is over here. Things are easily identifiable and you can stay calm and not be flustered looking for things and being like, where is it? Where is it? And that way everything just stays organized and that will help. So I have a quick video for us as well. And then that will wrap us up for today.
May I ask a question?
You may.
Thank you. So for the last 3 semesters, I lived on campus, but this semester I'm living off campus and that's a new experience. So I'm about 22 minutes from campus. And with the parking garage, walking to classes, that's about an hour just transit. What do you usually do to make that the most productive? do you listen to lectures, or do you use that as a kind of moment to take a break and just breathe?
I think that's really up to you and figuring out what works. For me, I use my car ride. I live roughly 10 minutes from campus. And then I kind of, my classes are more in the evening. So I usually go home between being on campus during the day and at night. So I like to use my car ride as a time to decompress, kind of take some time to myself and listen to music. But if you have lectures or things that you like to listen to in the car, because I know your drive's a little further than mine, I think it's really trying one out, maybe seeing how listening to the lectures might work for you. And if that's something that works for you, I think that's a great idea, a good use of that time, especially being on that long of a trip, but also needing to just kind of carve out some of that time for yourself and make sure that you do have some of that time just to kind of relax and decompress.
All right. Thank you.
So this video here is on, it's about a little less than 2 minutes. It's something called Pickle Jar Theory. It has to do with a philosophy professor and talking about the ways in which we maybe prioritize our time as a whole individual, not just within the school setting.
You booked a sunny Verbo ski chalet with endless views of snow-covered peaks. But the thing that
There's a well-known story about a university professor that wanted to make a point about the importance of prioritizing how we spend our time. The professor stood in front of his class with a display of items. He took a large empty jar and filled it with rocks, approximately 2 inches in diameter. He then asked the class if the jar was full, and they agreed, yes, the jar was full. The professor then took a box of pebbles and added them to the jar and gave it a little shake to move the pebbles into the open areas around the rocks. The professor asked the class again if the jar was full. They agreed, yes, it is full this time. The professor then took a box of sand and added it to the jar, filling the spaces between the rocks and the pebbles. He asked again, now, is the jar full? They laughed and agreed, yes, it's full. This jar represents your life. The big rocks signify the really important things in your life, such as health, family, and friends. The pebbles are the other things that matter in your life, such as work or school. And the sand signifies the remaining small stuff, such as material possessions. Now, if you were to reverse the order of filling the jar and add the sand first, there would not be enough room for the rocks and the pebbles. The same principle applies to your life. If you spend too much time on the small stuff, you won't have enough space or time to focus on the things that are truly important, the big rocks. So, prioritize the big rocks first. Practice self-care, spend quality time with the people you love, and the rest is just pebbles and sand. They will always find some space.
Great. So yeah, I think that video is a great example of the ways in which we need to kind of look at some of the things that go on in our life and really sit down, think about what's important, but realize that there is always room in the jar for everything if we find the way to prioritize properly. Does anyone have any questions? All right, well then I will leave you with this quote from Michael Altschuler. The bad news is time flies. The good news is you are the pilot. So thank you all for coming today. I hope you all took something away from this. Like I said, this video will be posted on the Academic Support Program's website if you ever would like to revisit it. And if you need any verification for any of your courses or anything like that, those slips will be available in the Academic Support Program's office for you. Come pick those up anytime later this week or next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yep, you're all welcome. Bye.